Hi everyone, I'm proud to announce that DFW for Yang endorses Manu Lail for Collin County Democratic Party chair. We arrived at this decision after the Collin County Yang Gang offered their endorsement for Manu Lail. We then put the endorsement up to a vote among the primary contacts of Dallas Yang Gang, Fort Worth Yang Gang, Denton Yang Gang, and Collin County Yang Gang. With a supermajority of the vote and no contention, we affirm that Manu Lail is not only good for Collin County, but he is within our interest as the Yang Gang of North Texas. Most endorsements you see coming out of the Yang Gang are for people running on universal basic income as a major part of their platform. We are endorsing Manu for a slightly different reason. The party chair position is meant to be a stoic and impartial position. Therefore, Manu, as party chair, would not be responsible for pushing legislation or promoting specific policies. However, as party chair, he would be responsible for bringing new faces and ideas into the party. He's also responsible for making sure that newcomers and outsiders feel that they have a place in our political process. In 2019 and 2020, the Yang Gang experienced firsthand what it's like to be ignored by the establishment and by the mainstream media. That's why we're excited that Manu Lail, a problem-solving Asian American entrepreneur, father of 2 children, one of whom has autism, is stepping up to the plate to make sure that fresh faces, backgrounds, and ideas are represented in our democracy. Please consider voting for Manu Lail for Collin County Democratic Party chair when you go to vote between now and Super Tuesday. You can find all of Manu Lail's information, such as his website, his contact info, and his social media in the video description below. This past week, I had the chance to interview Manu at his home one-on-one. Please take a listen.
Cool.
Hi everybody, Hexel Colorado with DFW for Yang. I'm joined here by Manu Lail, candidate for the Collin County Democratic Party chair. So in this video, we are interviewing him to give you guys an idea of who he is, what he's about, why he's running, and why you should consider supporting him and voting for him between now and March 3rd. So before we jump into very, very deep questions, I'd like to first talk about you, talk about yourself. So can you give us a little bit about your history,
Sure.
tell us about your background, your family, what you're currently doing. Just introduce yourself.
So, my name is Manu Lail. I'm running to be chair of the Collin County Democratic Party. My parents moved from India in 1977, and I was born 2 years later in 1979 in Chicago. I lived there all the way up until 2006, and then I moved down to DFW. I was actually in IT from 1999 to pretty much 2006, and I just kind of got done with the corporate career, and I wanted to get into business for myself, so I moved down to Dallas and opened a company where I purchase underperforming hotels and I flip them. And fast forward to 2017, I'd gotten married, I had kids, and Trump got elected, and the whole world kind of changed for me around that time period. I had a 6-month-old daughter and a 3-year-old son who had autism, who had just gotten diagnosed with autism, and I really kind of did that gut check that I think a lot of young parents do. And I thought about, where is the world going to be 10, 20, 30 years from now? And, I thought about just the future of everything. Automation. How is AI going to affect the future? How are people going to relate and work together? The world is becoming more globalized. It's becoming more unified because of technology. And what would those repercussions, what are the repercussions to my children as well, right? And what is some of the stigmatas behind being a woman, behind having a kid with autism or having autism, and what would that mean for my kids? And so that's when I didn't like seeing all the things that I'm seeing, and I jumped into politics. And that's when I jumped into the Collin County Democratic Party. I became a precinct chair, eventually became an assistant vice chair, which is the 3rd ranking position in the party. And I noticed that, just things weren't going in the same direction that I think they should go. And I feel like there's a lot of opportunity in Collin County. There's a lot of positivity that I see going into 2020 if we had the right leader in control of the party. And so that's why I jumped up and said, I want to be that next leader. And so that here we are now. all of a sudden sitting in a room and talking to you.
Fantastic. One question we got a lot was, why did our candidate start with the office that he started with, right? And so for you, what was it that helped you decide that of all of the offices, all the positions that you could run for, you needed to run specifically for chair of the Collin County Democratic Party?
So that's a great question. When I looked at the entire landscape in Collin County, the number one thing that I realized is that we had great candidates. We had a lot of passion within the volunteer ranks. It's just that strategically things were not moving in the right direction. And so looking at the county chair role, a lot of what I do on a day-to-day basis in my professional life, much of those leadership qualities and skills directly translate into the county chair role. So a lot of what happens with the county chair role when it comes to from a leadership perspective, a lot of that's like breathing to me. I've been doing it for 14 years. So, and my campaign, I think, is a testament to that. We're doing a great job because of that. But ultimately, as county chair, if I can get a few people elected into office, 4, 5, 6 different candidates, I'm affecting policy change on multiple levels. So if I get people into city council, school boards, get them into state rep positions, congressional, I'm helping all those folks influence policy decisions. If I'm just a candidate for one area, I can only influence policy decisions in that particular area. So, and I apologize for my daughter in the background.
Oh, no worries. Well, that's another thing I like about you is that you are a family man.
Yeah.
And I think, this is going to a Yang Gang audience. I think you have a lot in common with the person we supported, Andrew Yang. He was an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He was a father of 2 kids, one of whom who has autism, much similar to the makeup of your family.
Yep.
You're also an Asian American.
Yeah.
I want to use that as a segue to whenever I've talked to people in Collin County, there's a lot of conversation about the diversity of Collin County and how, as a Democratic Party, we need to do what we can to get more people from more backgrounds involved. From your perspective, what does the party need to be doing in order to reach out to people of color and to people who generally have not seen a place for them in the party?
So, great question. How do you build diversity in the party, right? And how do you get all those people to the polls? One of the best ways that I know of is to make sure that those communities are represented inside the party. Nobody is going to, if I go to an African American community and tell them that I know how they feel, there's a disconnect. There's going to be a disconnect. And so I always feel that the best way to make that happen is to get people within those communities involved into the party itself. That's what I want to do. And so part of that is giving people leadership roles, making sure that young folks have leadership roles, making sure people of different genders have leadership roles, people of different diversity and backgrounds, people with disabilities and special needs as well should have leadership roles. All of that broadens our worldview. It also helps to kind of break down the divide that we see in this county. While there is a lot of diversity, a lot of those diversity groups don't commingle. Right. And they kind of stay their separate ways. I come from Chicago. Chicago's a big melting pot. And I think much of that happens because diversity has been kind of ingrained in Chicago culture for some time, that you do see a lot of crossroads there. And so one of the things that I want to do is build a community coalition by making sure that community leaders are well represented inside of our party, and that we're also engaging people of color, people of different backgrounds to become candidates, and in giving them the training and support to actually move up in life.
One of the issues or concerns that I get a lot in the Yang Gang is should we even care about the party in the first place? So for those of you who are not familiar with the party chair position, you're not going to be a legislator, you're not going to be in the Senate at a state or at the national level. And so why should people in the Yang Gang, or really anybody, why should they care about this particular race and this particular position?
Great question. So, the important part to the party and why people should care about the party is, if you think about the chair role, the chair is really the coach of the team. So if you think of the all-star candidates that are out there, the candidates are my all-star team. My job is to recruit them. It's to get them trained up. It's to get them on the court and help them win. So in a nutshell, that's the job of the chair. And why it's so important is if you think about the candidates come during the election cycle. They're, if they win their elections, they're going and legislating in between those time periods. But they're coming and going during the election cycles. It's important for the party to maintain a stable base of both volunteers and fundraising and building relationships within the community. So when that candidates do run for office, they come into a party structure that is supporting them well. That way, if you think about like a candidate, let's say you were running for office, you do not want to spend your time going after the Democratic base, because the Democratic base should be something that the party should get riled up and enthusiastic. I would instead, as a candidate, want you to already have that Democratic base, and as a candidate, start pressing the flesh with those that are maybe moderate Republicans or people that are of neither side that really you need to sway as a candidate. That way you're spending most of your time focusing, bringing new voters in and really inspiring that next generation, hopefully, to come out to vote as well.
What are the key things that you would do differently for the party if and when you're elected?
Great question. Actually, there's a lot of key things that I would change. So first, we have a huge amount of passionate volunteers and activists within Collin County, and you guys have experienced that. There's a lot of new people that are energized about politics. There's a younger generation that wants to get involved, and we need to help cultivate them and get them up into leadership roles. So one part is definitely increasing our fundraising. The other part is building a bigger tent. We are not going to be able to represent our county or the folks that are inside of our county, young or old, diverse, again, from whatever background, unless we build ourselves a bigger tent. And the only way that will happen is if I facilitate better relationships within all of those communities and bring them together. And then last but not least, we need a good slate of qualified candidates. We have great candidates now, but I personally think that they can also become better. We should have a training program that helps mentor and coach them on how to become better candidates. We should have better data analytics to help them understand what messaging works. And we should also have communications teams that help them craft their message, help them with public speaking skills. Not everybody's great at public speaking, right? It's not natural all the time. And so if we have a good support structure for our candidates and we recruit well-qualified candidates, it will inspire more people to come out to the polls and vote as well. So I would say that those three things are the biggest things that I would want to change. Fundraising, candidate recruitment and training, and building us a bigger tent.
One thing that was brought up in the recent town hall between you and Mike Rawlings is the question of experience versus promise or vision.
Sure.
So Mike has been in the position for 5 years. Yeah. And naturally, the biggest advantage he has over you for the position is experience. Mm-hmm. And so what would you say to people who are concerned about the experience gap between yourself and Mike?
So I would say that I think I have a lot of skills that relate to the county chair position. First off, I run a pretty large company that's much more complex. What the party earns in a fundraising amount in a year, we do in a month. And so the complexity in the number of transactions, the complexity in the amount of people that are working in the organization, and from an auditing and compliance perspective as well, all those things are pretty similar to when it comes to the party format. And when it comes to the campaigning itself, I've proven we have over 100 volunteers working on the campaign at any given time. We've raised 100% donations from donors. I've not self-funded at all, not written a check to myself at all like my opponent has. And we have beaten out his following when it comes to digital followers on social media. We've done it on every single platform. And while he's been in office for 5 years, I've only been running my campaign for 7 months. And so what he's done in 5 years when it comes to social media, I did it in such a short amount of time. I did those things because I knew the question of experience would come up. And what I wanted to portray to a lot of folks was actions speak louder than words. And so we hit the ground running, and we purposely went after 100% donations. We purposely went after trying to get larger social media followings and things like that to not only cultivate the votes, but also to prove to people that we have something here. And there's a reason why we've attracted so many people. Now, on the internal side, the party has a high turnover rate. Just in the last 7 months that we've been running our campaign, the party has turned over multiple leadership positions, and we have 0 turnover rate in our campaign. Nobody from our leadership team has left, and they are all 100% volunteers. Nobody's paid. So I think that speaks to volumes as far as leadership is concerned. When it comes to the nuances and the internals of the party, what most people don't recognize is that it's not just the chair who knows everything and does everything. It's a whole team. So there are plenty of individuals who volunteer in the party who actually take care of the primary administration and overseeing of that, who take care of kind of some of the internals and the nuances when it comes to the statutory obligations and the requirements under the law and making sure that everything is filled out correctly. Not one person in any organization deals with that, right? So what this party doesn't lack, it does not lack the experience to handle those issues. What it lacks is the vision. It lacks a leader who will take us to that next level and somebody who doesn't get stuck into the weeds. A big difference between myself and Mike Rollins would be that Mike will go into every single committee meeting. He will, even though he has a chair for those committees, he will readily attend those meetings. He's always going to be kind of entrenched into the bottom levels, okay? And if you want to grow as any organization, you have to first have a very hierarchical structure of management. The other thing that you learn over leadership is you never undercut somebody that you've given authority to. So if you're in charge of a chair, if you're a chair of a committee, it's very demeaning and micromanaging if I come in and start undercutting your authority. From a leadership perspective, if you put somebody into a position of power, it's important to give them the responsibility and make sure that you trust those folks to do the job. The reason why we're seeing a lot of people turn over and a lot of volunteers leave is because they don't feel that their opinions are valued. They don't think that their input is being heard. And for those reasons, it's important to have somebody who understands what it means to lead people for a living. And I do that, right? People always say you can't manage people the same way as you do a business. And what I tell folks is I don't manage people for a living. I lead them. I put the right person in the right position, and I help them become their better selves. That's how you lead. That's how you get a successful organization together. That's how you get a successful campaign together as well. And so, is there a leadership difference? Sure. Mike has been in that position for 5 years. And so if we were to always follow that trend, then Mike should be in that position for the rest of eternity because nobody else has ever been county chair, right? And it'd be the same as the presidency. Why should we ever trust a new president to come into office? The existing guy has been there forever. It is that vision. It is that taking to the next step. It is that forward progressive view that should encourage all of us to vote for a new leader to change things up. And that's what I hope I'm doing.
Once you are elected as the party chair, what do you want people who are looking at this race or really just trying to be more involved in the party in general, what would you recommend would be the first thing that they do when you're in the position day one? Like, would you want them to reach out to you? What would you like people to do on day one of Manu as Democratic chair?
So that's an excellent question. What would I want people to do on day one? We need people. It's going to be all hands on deck in 2020. If we want to flip this county, turn things around, build that fundraising base, then we're going to need people of all different skill sets, all different backgrounds to be in our party and make our tent bigger. It's going to require a monumental effort to register the 100,000 unregistered Democratic voters that reside in our county. It's going to take a monumental effort to raise the $1 million of fundraising dollars that I want to raise for this party. It's going to take a monumental effort to build the diversity, to build the candidate bench, and a lot of it will require skill sets even like this, where we have folks who understand audiovisual and communications and strategy, from messaging to data analytics. You name it, there's a position in politics where we'll need you. So I would say reach out to us day one, and we will make sure that we're going to plug you in. The other part that I ask everybody is be patient. Politics is a messy business. Sometimes you don't get everything that you want. There's a lot of times that things seem like they're grinding and take forever to implement, but that's politics. Our democracy was founded on conversation and discussion and grinding things through, and it was purposely created that way so that we wouldn't have somebody just kind of manipulate everything, right? And so just be patient and get involved, and obviously be activists in the county and make sure that your voice is heard amongst us. So I appreciate that. Hey everybody, my name is Manu Lail. I'm running to be chair of the Collin County Democratic Party. Between now and Election Day on March 3rd, make sure that you reach out to all your friends and family and let them know about my campaign and get them out to vote. It's important that we change party leadership to make sure that we start turning Collin County blue in 2020. You can visit my website, www.manulail.com, for more information. We need poll greeters from February 18th to the 28th on early voting, and then also the election day. So make sure that you sign up to become a poll greeter by going to my website and clicking on Join Us. Let's make sure that we're all working together and getting out there to get the vote out for not only the primaries, but getting people out to vote for our candidates in November as well. Thanks.